Somewhere right now, a judge is about to hand down the most ordinary sentence in the world. A number of years, 10 years, 20, life. And you hear that, and it feels obvious, timeless. Of course, that's what you do with someone dangerous. You take away their freedom. You lock them away. But here is the strange thing. For almost the entire history of our species, that idea would have made no sense at all. Now, to be clear, prisons are old, genuinely ancient. Rome had a notorious one, carved into the rock beneath the city, more than 2,500 years ago. Kings and cities had dungeons, pits, cells, chains. So the building is old, but look closely at what those places were actually for, and you find something that should stop you. They were not the punishment. They were the waiting room. You were thrown in a cell to be held until your trial, held until your family paid, held until the morning you would be flogged or branded or exiled or executed. The cell was just the pause before the real thing happened to you. Almost nobody was sentenced to sit in that cell for years and told that the sitting itself was the point. Because think about what actual punishment looked like for most of human history. It was fast, and it was physical, and it was usually public. A fine, paid in silver or cattle. A whipping in the town square. A hand or an ear taken. Banishment, sent out past the edge of everything you knew, sold into slavery, or marched off to a mine to dig until you died. And at the far end, the rope, the axe, the cross. Notice what all of those have in common. They are over quickly, and they cost the people in charge almost nothing. And that, it turns out, is the whole reason the modern prison didn't exist. Locking a person in a room for 10 years is astonishingly expensive. You have to build the room. You have to guard it every hour of every day. You have to feed that person, clothe them, keep them alive for a decade and get nothing back. To an ancient king, that was insane. Why would you pay every single day to keep an enemy comfortable and breathing when a single afternoon could settle the matter for free? If you wanted to squeeze something out of a wrongdoer, you didn't cage them. You put them to work. Debt didn't send you to prison. It made you a servant, sometimes a slave, until the debt was paid off in labor. The point was always to get value out of the body, or to remove it, or to make an example of it. The point was almost never to store it at ruinous cost inside a wall. So for thousands of years, the picture is remarkably consistent. Crime met a swift answer. Your money, your body, your banishment, or your life. And the cell in the corner of the city was never the sentence. It was just the hallway you passed through on the way to it, which leaves a genuine mystery. If confinement was too expensive, too pointless, too strange to use as a punishment for almost all of human history, then where on earth did our entire modern idea of doing time come from? The answer is surprisingly recent, and it begins with a feeling you might not expect. Not cruelty, mercy. By the late 1700s, in Europe and in the new United States, a growing number of people were becoming sickened by the old punishments, the public hangings, the mutilations, the bodies broken in the square for a crowd to watch. To the reformers of the Enlightenment, this was barbaric, and worse, it didn't work. And among the loudest of these voices were religious reformers. In America, especially the Quakers of Pennsylvania. They had a radical and strangely tender idea. What if the goal of punishment wasn't to destroy the body at all? What if it was to repair the soul? And to repair a soul, they believed, You needed one thing above all, not a whip, not a gallows, time and silence and solitude. You would take the wrongdoer, and instead of breaking them in public, you would place them alone in a quiet cell with nothing but their conscience and, often, a Bible. And there, cut off from the noise of the world, they would reflect on what they had done. They would feel remorse. They would become penitent. That word matters because it is where the name comes from. A place designed to produce penitence, a penitentiary. In 1790, in Philadelphia, a wing of the Walnut Street jail was turned into exactly this, the first true attempt to make confinement itself the sentence. Decades later, the enormous Eastern State Penitentiary took the idea to its extreme, sealing prisoners in near total isolation, so complete that some were led through the halls with hoods over their heads, so they could not even see another human face. Across the ocean, thinkers designed vast machines of surveillance, and Britain built its first national penitentiary. In just a few decades, a brand new answer to crime was born, and it spread across the world. And here is the part that should genuinely reframe how you see it. The prison, the thing you picture as the ancient, default, obvious punishment, is one of the youngest major institutions in human life. It is barely 200 years old. It was not handed down from antiquity. It was invented deliberately as a moral experiment, an attempt to be more humane than the axe. There is one last twist hiding inside it. To sentence someone to prison, you had to invent something else first. The idea that you could measure a human wrong in units of time, that justice could be counted out in years, the way a factory counts out hours. Doing time only makes sense in a world that has already agreed that time is the thing we own and the thing that can be taken. That, too, is a very modern thought. So the next time you hear a judge say a number of years, don't hear something eternal. Hear something invented, a specific answer chosen only a few generations ago to a question as old as our species. What do we do with the people who break the rules? For almost all of history, we answered with the body. Then, very recently, we decided to answer with the clock, and we told ourselves it had always been that way.